Hey, this is IP Communications and VoIP. We're at vuc.me on the web. We meet every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. We would like to thank Simwood.com for their support. Simwood can turn you as a developer into a telco. Another longtime supporter of the VUC, OnSIP.com, hosted PBX. Thanks to ZipDX.com for their HD audio conferencing system that we are using right now. Our local rate dial-in numbers are provided by Voxbone.com. And a big thanks to everyone who contributes to the VUC, numerous people around the globe. Thank you. This is an absolutely amazing moment in time where I found the fader, so I'm now talking live. And we have the slide up. I'm going to leave this up for a second because Team FreeSWITCH is with us. Now, we had to do something because every person here is critical to FreeSWITCH. We have purposely located them all over the globe so that if anything happens anywhere, there's still the rest of the team. Okay? Now that we got that out of the way. Andy, you and I met up again at TADHack. That was one of the most amazing conferences I've ever been to, literally, because it was really great. We met a lot of great people.
Yeah.
What did you take away? Anything?
Oh, an awful lot.
Besides what you stole from the hotel, I mean.
Yeah, there were lots of things for you, bathrobes, towels, and such things. No kidding. The whole event was really interesting, with up to about 500 people around the world in the 5 satellites, as well as in Madrid. And the thing I took away from that more than anything is the enthusiasm there is, particularly amongst young people, for telephone or telephony application development. There's a lot of good ideas there, pushing the envelope going forward, mainly in the mobile field. But it was extremely interesting. Met a lot of really good people too.
I agree, and Alan Quayle did a absolutely fantastic job organizing that thing. Now there's kind of a contest here in a way because ClueCon is coming up. So we're going to go from one conference to the next one, and somebody is going to tell us why ClueCon is now the next thing you have to go to. And I think Ken Rice is here. He might want to say something about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, ClueCon, we're actually going on, this will be the 10th ClueCon annually since the very beginning, and it has come a long way from the little crappy hotel that we were in the very first year. This year, the number of people that show up there, it just gets bigger and better every year. I mean, of course you can come hang out with the FreeSWITCH guys like Tony and Brian and Mike, but guys like Chris Kilhoffner, Mr. James Bodie, even Phil Zimmerman and guys like that have been there in the past. So the names that show up at ClueCon and just hang out and chat with folks is amazing. And it's not it's not like going to IT Expo or one of those sell me something conferences. It's actually a technical conference for developers. It's put on by developers, and so you can come out, hang out, learn something, and maybe not see all the sales presentations. Everybody trying to sell you something all day long. So it's actually some really cool stuff. I think this year there's going to be a lot of focus again on WebRTC and scalability, and just a lot of cool stuff. I think. I know James Bodie will be bringing dangerous demos to ClueCon this year, so that should be interesting, and just a lot of fun stuff going on.
James, you should say a word about dangerous demos in case anybody doesn't know what they are or hasn't.
Am I live?
Yep, you are live, sir.
I'm in the bank vault.
Oh no!
At the moment, hence the echo. So yeah, dangerous demos for the first time at ClueCon in its new format, its new exciting format. We're looking at 3, possibly 4 prizes this time, so it's easier to win a prize, and live audience voting. So that could be very interesting. We're going to circulate more details about what you need to do in order to enter dangerous demos a little bit later. But basically, it's going to be a 5-minute, 3 to 5 minute demo of something exciting and dangerous, and some of the demos need to be themed. So, for example, to win the FreeSWITCH prize, you need to build a big chunk of FreeSWITCH into it. So,
and James has practiced these dangerous demos and brought them to a point of perfection that the world will see at ClueCon probably. It'll be the climax of dangerous demos. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Tony, who's going to tell you all of the exciting news and direct the other guests, Michael, Brian, and who am I forgetting? Chris. So, Tony, please take it away, and if you feel lucky, we are Friday the 13th. Go for it.
Right, I forgot about that. That's pretty funny. Hello, everybody, and everyone should thank Brian for
yeah, unmuting would be
here.
Good.
No, I hear him. I hear you. I hear you. We hear you.
Oh. Good. Okay. But anyway, I should thank Brian for coming during his vacation. He's remotely from Florida, taking off from paradise to hang out with us, so that's pretty cool of him.
No, you're fine now.
Anyway.
You're fine.
What?
No, he's fine, James. You can go back to whatever you were doing in the bank vault. Everybody's cool.
Maybe he's delayed or something. I don't know. Anyway, so like we were talking about, this is our 10th ClueCon, which is hard to imagine. But it's equally hard to imagine that FreeSWITCH is only 1 year behind it. So we're on our 9th year of FreeSWITCH. And it seems like yesterday, but it's incredible how much stuff we still have to do. We've actually had a pretty good year. We've had a new release, and we've had a community gathering, kind of, I don't know what to call it, but kind of like a meeting of the minds for our documentation effort, which has always been something we really wanted to do. And recently, in the last like 2 or 3 months, we've managed to get momentum behind that. So we have a regular weekly documentation project, which I think is awesome because there's so much to FreeSWITCH that people don't even know about, and we don't have the time to tell everyone. So it's great to have someone focused on just finding those things and documenting them, so that everyone who discovers FreeSWITCH for the first time has some things to learn about. And also, with ClueCon coming up, we traditionally have like one big thing we do every year, you know, some kind of new addition to FreeSWITCH just to keep things moving forward. And this year we have 2 new things that are actually released in the last 2 days into our master branch. So they're still, I'd say, beta-ish quality, but you know, we're working on getting them into the final release, probably the next one or something. One of them is stereo audio support for the WebRTC and Opus. We've been waiting around for years for something to exist that implements stereo, so we have a reason to do it. And you know, finally with WebRTC and Opus, that's pretty easy to set up. So we now have the ability to negotiate the codecs in stereo. And along with that, we've had years of using SIP over WebSockets as our main way of signaling on WebRTC, and we meant to implement that as kind of like a stepping stone towards something else. It was the most logical first step because it was the path of least resistance, because we knew the media was already STP and all we had to do was, you know, implement SIP signaling over WebSockets. But really, it's not enough. We can talk later with Chris here from Star to Star, who's kind of helped inspire us and lead us along the way to the next phase of WebRTC in FreeSWITCH, which is a new signaling protocol called Verto that we've just put into our tree. It's a JavaScript on the client side stack that talks to JSON RPC protocol, which is basically just a very simple JSON wire protocol that it can go over more than one format, but we're using it over WebSockets. And basically, it's kind of a lightweight JSON-based signaling protocol to communicate between the browser and FreeSWITCH, which, besides setting up calls, is also bringing together communication from other aspects of FreeSWITCH. So, for instance, you can with your connection to the server, you can get streaming event data about what's going on in the call. For instance, if you call a conference, the conferences can broadcast information about who's on the conference and stuff over that channel, so that it can show you like the people who are calling the conference. You can interface all the existing FreeSWITCH features, to run one of the API commands or whatever to control things. You can pick how much of it you can allow. It also ties together with our new JSON API, which is essentially you can write modules in C that are designed to accept JSON. And we have a C JSON code in our core that you can use to prototype it. So essentially you're working with the JSON from C, but you're designing it so that it's JSON in, JSON out, so you can, it takes a little more work from the C side, but when you're gluing it together with their other kind of logic, you can go in there and like set the JSON up from the C API, and when you return it, it comes back over the wire as strings, normal JSON, so that you can write both sides of your logic and have FreeSWITCH in the middle, as well as pushing some of those over other ways. So if anyone's ever used FreeSWITCH before and is familiar with our event socket that we already have, this is sort of like the next generation of event socket over WebSockets. And so it's more than just a call protocol. It's actually, you can control the entire FreeSWITCH or make calls, and that's pretty much the general description. In fact,
okay, so we're counting on you to actually run the call because we got the whole team here. So call on whoever.
So I guess we should have a chat with the other guys, sure. So why don't you tell everyone what's been going on with the documentation, Brian?
Well, can everybody hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. A few months ago, we were deciding our direction on how we wanted to present our documentation to the world. We had done a complete integration and migration of the current wiki to Confluence, and when I first viewed it, I deemed it unacceptable, and at that point in time, on one of our Wednesday calls, we gathered a bunch of people that were interested in this project, and it just all started to fall into place when we decided that we were going to start over. That what we have is just chaos. If you've ever read our documentation, it's all over the place. So we worked together to hash out a very logical outline of how we want to present the documentation to end users of FreeSWITCH. That came together very rapidly on one of our Wednesday calls. We did a Google Doc and shared it, and everybody, it rapidly grew into this massive document outline of how we wanted to approach this. And then once we started that process, I decided that I wanted to keep it going. So, we reached out to the community. We had members join the documentation project. We have a mailing list set up for it. We have its own meeting every Tuesday, and we have ad hoc meetings throughout the week as, they pop up as people that are on the project pop into IRC and have questions or want to interact with one of the developers. They send Anthony, Mike, and I emails constantly asking for clarifications on documentation. Is this correct? Is this still true? And then we answer all of those as they come in. And we work together, and we've had more people. I think we have about 12 or 14 people now that are working diligently, and the pace has picked up. Even just this week, I've been kind of keeping an eye on it from my iPhone and noticing more people getting involved. More, the pace has just picked up dramatically this week, and I'm excited about that because it's taken us this long to get to that point. And a lot of people that don't code are stepping in and helping out and learning a lot more about FreeSWITCH in the process. And that's pretty much where we are with our docs project right now.
And Mike, we can talk to you a little bit about our new build. It's funny, but the platform and build side of things is actually very complicated and almost its own project. So we'll hear from Mike about how that's going.
So we picked back up maybe 3 or 4 months ago and decided to do a refresh of making sure that FreeSWITCH stays cross-platform and more accessible to everyone. And Brian and I have gone through and gotten it building, without any hoops to jump through basically on Linux, all the BSDs, Solaris, Windows, and Mac. We've had a kind of a resurgence of people from the community stepping in. So we have kind of core community members building Debian packages now, and we're starting to work on BSD ports packages, trying to make FreeSWITCH a lot more accessible, regardless of the operating system you use. So it's been a big push. It should be pretty much accessible no matter what operating system you're on now. And if there's anyone interested in something that we don't support, feel free to talk to me, and we're happy to put some effort into getting things working smooth.
We didn't actually go through the process of introducing everybody. Anthony, would you mind doing that? Tony, Anthony, you are the main.
Yeah.
You know, say who's who, because people are asking about.
I'm Anthony.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Figure that out probably. So I'm the lead developer of FreeSWITCH, and Brian and Mike, who we've just talked to, are my left and right hand. The three of us are essentially the founders of the FreeSWITCH project and the longest members. Brian usually works on dealing with fixing the bugs and working on getting features added and all the kind of important things that hold everything together. And Mike focuses on, doing the platform and making sure everything builds right. And like I said, it's a lot more complicated than you think. And so that's the two core guys. And Ken, he is our community person. I don't know what's your title, Ken? You have a title?
I don't know. I think it varies from day to day depending on what you guys need me to do.
Stable branch maintainer.
Stable branch maintainer. Yeah, so and what I do for the project is pretty much whatever Tony, Mike, and Brian need. So whether it's supporting the FreeSWITCH infrastructure, helping schedule the weekly calls, helping Brian this year organize ClueCon, and making sure that the stable releases are cut, tagged, all that other good fun stuff. Just pretty much whatever these guys need, I'm here to support them. And do what they need so that we can keep Tony and Mike and Brian working on new stuff and keeping FreeSWITCH moving forward.
And just to keep the context straight, by the way, I was joking about everybody being in, because this is a critical team and everybody's in a different location. We should probably go back to the history for 2 seconds and just explain when this started. We have the co-founders are here. And in 2003 or 4, there was Asterisk. A FreeSWITCH started in, according to my calculations, 2005, because you said it was 9 years. How was there a ClueCon before? Why was there ClueCon before FreeSWITCH, by the way? Because you guys already were committed to a thing before that even happened, huh?
ClueCon is essentially where we got the idea to do FreeSWITCH. So it's like I remember back in the old days, but. It was the Asterisk 1.2 era. The three of us were working heavily on the project. I was doing primarily development of features and stuff that I thought were fun and things that I needed for the business I was working at the time. And I met Brian and Mike both through the community. We were bug marshals as well as developers and testers for Asterisk. And I think
Tony, a lot of that took place on IRC channel, right?
Yeah, a lot of it took place on IRC channel. It's kind of like
those days.
Built our civilization from scratch. Yeah, so we started by having weekly conference calls, or even daily ones. It started to become. We were just trying to organize the community so we would have a conference call, and then. When we had the conference call back in those days, it was like the Meet Me app, and it left some to be desired as far as functionality, So we're like, I know we could make like a better conference module. So then we started making a new conference module for Asterisk, and then once we had it online, we started having our meetings with that, and then, as we went, we started having crazy ideas about other stuff we can do, and we realized that our ideas were going too fast for the the roadmap for Asterisk at the time, and we figured might as well give it a shot. So I had some code that I was playing with for something else, and I was like, I think I could build a core out of this, and I made this small. We still kind of we have the original tarball of like my first weird little experimentation, kind of like FreeSWITCH that doesn't do anything, and we passed it around and stuff, and asked people what they thought, and you know what, we could probably make an actual program out of this, like a whole project. So we spent we went to ClueCon, put it aside, because we decided to have ClueCon just because we wanted to bring together all the voice projects, because at the time the AstroCon was new and it was so focused only on Asterisk that we had lots of friends in other projects, and so we thought we'll just be the conference for everything besides Asterisk. I mean, not that we excluded them, but instead of just having an Asterisk-centric one, we kind of wanted just to have a VoIP in general ones, and a bunch of the guys from Europe and stuff that were they're working on other kinds of voice projects, and we decided to go for it, not knowing what we're doing, and threw together a conference, and they all came, and it was a lot of discussions going on there. It wasn't pretty as far as logistics, but we've never really been strong at logistics. That's most developers aren't. But we started to think, because we didn't know what we're doing, maybe that's what makes it special, because we're not just doing the same thing that other conferences do. And we realized that we had this kind of endless discussions the whole time. And we actually got more inspired for all these different ideas on things that we could implement and goals that we could have for pushing voice forward. And after that was in August of 2005, I took that chunk of code that I was talking about and actually tried to get it to do something using some of the stuff from the other guys that I had been talking to there. And pretty much within 2 months, we were able to make it, at least appear to be like a voice app, like we could call somewhere and hear sound coming out of it. And incredibly enough, thanks to Mike's persistence, it also worked on Windows right away. All he had to do was mess with it for a half a day, and it was like, here, look at this, and he had a command line console of Windows running FreeSWITCH. So and at the time, I think we called it Choir. We changed the name a few times over the year that we were setting it up for the first time, but we still have a screen capture of the first time, and that was kind of neat. And what's particularly cool is that those feelings are fleeting, those exciting feelings, but it's the first time I ever used Asterisk and I set up, heard a dial tone come on my computer, I was super excited by it. Wow, I'm controlling this dial tone. And then came later, I make the sound the first time I had audio streaming over a call. Even though it was hodgepodge and just pushing the Stein linear across, from a file. And I was like, wow, I'm moving audio over the internet. And it's that same kind of cool feeling. And the first time we made our own tone generator, and you don't get many of those moments, but what's really kind of cool is that first song I played, I was able to play the other day with our new stereo support and actually hear it in full stereo. It was the Sirius by Alan Parsons project, which we have on our site as a demo. It actually plays out of both sides. So it was kind of cool. It was bookends, to go from that just pile of rubbish putting together, trying to get one call to work, to having this same song broadcasting in full quality stereo over a voice call. So it's kind of neat.
I have a question for you, Tony, and anybody else of the team could answer this too, which is there's obviously there was this beginning, which was, okay, we're going to fool around and try to do this, and we want to improve certain things, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. When would each of you think, unless you're all agreed, in which case one person could answer this, that it became it's totally serious, where it's hey, this is it. This is what we've been trying to do. When did that happen? Because it couldn't have happened the first year. I mean, if you tell me that, I'll be dubious. Okay.
Well, It kind of did. I mean,
serious contender, you know, where this is okay. This is going to take over the world in a certain way, which it did.
2006.
Actually, Tony, if you don't mind me interrupting here, Randy, I knew Tony and Brian and Mike back then, but I was not part of the project originally early on. But I got a hold of the code somewhere around November of '06, October, November timeframe. By December, I had deployed it into a production environment that's still running today, terminating large volumes of toll-free calls in the U.S. And that platform is still running, and that sold it for me. I've been working with FreeSWITCH ever since.
And
that went online in December of '06.
Okay, so we're talking 2006. That gives us 8 years of serious contender for the World Championship, which it is now for sure. I mean, there's a lot of people who are convinced that this is the best thing happening, and many of them are good friends of mine, so I know this is no joke. I personally, guys, I'm sorry to say I've never built FreeSWITCH or messed with it at all. So I take the word of people who I know and trust. By the way, there was a question about demoing some of the new features. I'm going to assume that a lot of the stuff is available on the site, freeswitch.org.
Well, actually,
go ahead.
We have WebRTC.freeswitch.org. If you go to there, has it, kind of a demo site. From there, there's a list of extensions at the bottom of the page that you can try that kind of show off the stereo stuff. I think there's like, you can call a stereo conference, which really doesn't do anything, but I just got one of the magical mics that allow you to hear like distance and stuff. I'm going to play with that and see how that works. But and we're thinking about playing around with virtual placement also, which we now have the ability to do now that we have stereo. So, but on there, it's kind of a proof of concept because we have some audio files that are recorded that way already that you can listen to, where it sounds like people are walking behind you and stuff. And it's, I think you can call 3D1 and 3D2, and then we have like stereo 1, 2, and 3 that are just songs that are kind of cool to hear broadcasting over the Opus. And you can go into a conference, but at the moment, like having the conference in stereo doesn't do much except for the hold music. But maybe in the next phase we'll actually have like even more to do with that. But yeah,
we have two people in IRC are referring to mod. I don't even know how it's pronounced. VRTO, Verto, I guess.
Mod Verto. That's the thing I was talking about. The new signaling protocol. And I think our own Chris Kielhoffner, who kind of was instrumental in making that possible, is going to talk about that. So why don't I just go to him right now because he looks anxious to talk. I can see him.
Because I've been barely trying to hold it together for about a half hour now. So. This is one of those cases where you know, Tony, you know, a lot of great qualities, but you know, one of them is that, you know, he's so understated and modest, and talking about a lot of the functionality in FreeSWITCH, it can really be hard for you know, kind of any of us to really do it justice. So I certainly understand that. And you know, Randy, I really, you know, going back to your comments, you know, you certainly realized the last time I was here on the VUC, spent a significant amount of time talking about the crypto support in FreeSWITCH, for example, with Ule and Dan York and some others. And you know, I think it was pretty clear from that instance of the VUC that FreeSWITCH, again, to kind of echo your sentiments, there is the leader of the pack, really, in terms of not only real-time communications in general, but certainly in terms of open source focused real-time communications in the you know, security, privacy, encryption, and crypto arena. And you know, I think I can say unequivocally that you know, you can say the same thing about FreeSWITCH when it comes to WebRTC and now, you know, particularly with stereo support, media support in general. So you know, Tony almost kind of mentioned WebRTC and Verto in passing, but you know, I'm located in Sarasota, Florida, and for a lot of people that don't know, this is the basically the home of the Ringling Circus. So I'm going to try to do the best I can to kind of channel my my inner circus promoter here, and try to describe really kind of how dramatic and substantial this functionality is. And I can give a little bit of history with that as well. So, by now, June 2014, certainly everybody has heard about WebRTC. And as a matter of fact, the WebRTC East conference is in Atlanta next week. And just looking at the demos, for example, you see demos and vendors and products. Everybody from Avaya to Dialogic to Ingate to Genband to Twilio to Video to TalkBox. Just a variety of vendors that even just from their presence really kind of emphasizes one of the kind of the central sort of features or messages of WebRTC, and that is really kind of a bridge in terms of real-time communications between a lot of these legacy networks and equipment providers and the web and the internet. In that we've got billions of endpoints worldwide accessible via the PSTN, of course. More and more that are accessible via various walled garden real-time communications networks, and we have billions and billions of devices, some of those of which actually overlap, that either now or in the very near future will be accessible via WebRTC, whether it's Chrome or built-in device support on mobile devices or what have you. So WebRTC really is well positioned to kind of be just as substantial kind of finally as people are positioning it. Now, of course, what we see in the kind of the web world, people kind of coming at this from the from the sort of the web orientation, is a lot of they show up on Hacker News almost daily. Basically, check out this peer-to-peer chat app or video app or whatever, some application that somebody made using basically nothing but HTML, JavaScript, and some CSS and a WebRTC capable browser. And people are able to do all kinds of interesting applications without really having to understand the kinds of things that we kind of coming from the maybe SIP or God forbid H323 or SS7 kind of the sort of the legacy sort of telephony orientation, the kind of stuff that we've always had to worry about, like reading SDPs in our sleep and dealing with various interop problems and what have you. WebRTC goes very far to kind of sort of mask a lot of those low-level technical details and make it much more accessible to a wider audience and a kind of a web developer audience. There is, though, and this is something that we've kind of certainly been aware of for some time. There is a significant gap, however, between these kind of peer-to-peer or peer-to-multi-peer essentially demo applications, and in some cases, approaching kind of commercial products that people from the web community have come up with, and real sort of enterprise-grade, production-grade, telephony-grade functionality, as well as bridging to all those other billions and billions and billions of endpoints that are out there that are only accessible through the PSTN or some other means. And I think FreeSWITCH has been very well suited to sort of bridge that gap. So going back a year was when FreeSWITCH delivered kind of the initial WebRTC functionality, and a significant portion of that effort was, of course, focused on the media stack components. Stun, turn, ICE support, SRTP with DTLS, and all of the other things that kind of go into making WebRTC happen from a media perspective. And at the time, as Tony has already mentioned, we decided that it'd probably be cleanest from our orientation and our perspective, as well as the perspective of the community, to basically just implement SIP over WebSocket and SIP over secure WebSocket transport support. So what that allowed web developer, for example, to do was use one of the existing JavaScript SIP stacks, such as SIP-ML5, SIP.js, or JS-SIP, to communicate with a FreeSWITCH server over WebSocket or secure WebSocket, and really kind of take advantage of a lot of the built-in SIP account functionality and a lot of the codec negotiation, and sort of some of the other things that have been available in FreeSWITCH for some time. And that's been a good stopgap measure. And even judging from just the amount of traffic on the mailing list, there have been a fairly significant number of people that are utilizing that functionality for for a variety of their their applications. And that's so that's certainly something that that FreeSWITCH has had and has been used by the community at large. And with that, though, it became clear that there was there's just a better way to do this, to really just not have to deal with SIP. I don't think I'm betraying any confidences when I say that whether it's myself, Tony, probably anybody else that's really worked with it, you're not going to find a lot of fans of SIP. Let's just put it that way. And it just kind of seemed unnecessary. Seemed like Mike's already smiling. It just seemed kind of unnecessary for us to not only have to deal with this kind of goofy SIP over WebSocket stuff, but also expect developers to deal with it as well from the web application side. So with Verto, and this is kind of a thing. It was so funny how how significant I feel it is, and how kind of how quickly it was mentioned by Tony. But with Verto, what you're able to do is basically using a dedicated channel driver on the or channel module on the endpoint module. I'm using asterisk terminology actually. With an endpoint module on the FreeSWITCH side, have a listening WebSocket or a listening secure WebSocket, and use basically an also commonly developed single JavaScript library on the client side to communicate directly with that endpoint module with FreeSWITCH, not only for call signaling and control, the usual stuff, make a call, end a call, put a call on hold, what have you, but also communicate with the core FreeSWITCH API, the API commands that are typically available separately over ESL. And so a web developer can now, with a single JavaScript library, not only do call setup and control, which of course you need, but do things ranging from multi-party conference member management, speaker detection, kick, conference mute, invite people in, what have you, as over again kind of this same signaling channel using the same library, but also interact with all of the other features and functions that are available over that standard API that's been available for years via ESL. So I think it's remarkably powerful to basically reduce the barrier of entry to not only be able to bridge to existing and legacy networks, whether it be the PSTN or other voice over IP or real-time communications networks, but also take advantage of the multi-user functionality that's available in FreeSWITCH using a single JavaScript library and a single easy-to-understand API. So long spiel, but that's my take on Verto, FreeSWITCH, and kind of the history of WebRTC and how we got to this point.
You guys think that SIP is going to disappear sometime soon? I mean, maybe not that soon, but I mean, there are many directions things are going in.
No.
Yes, I do.
I think
Cage match.
At least in this project.
Yeah, SIP is going to disappear like the fax.
Oh.
What we're talking about here is.
Except that fax hasn't disappeared; it refuses to disappear, and people keep.
We're not going to declare war on SIP just yet because it's so good luck with that. I mean, maybe it'll kill itself the way it's going, but
Well,
we're talking about here.
323 hangs on for a while.
I'm sorry, Michael. Go ahead. I talked over you.
Well, H323 hangs on, so SIP's likely to be around a long while.
It does, yeah. No, I was just going to say that everything being mobile now. What about VoLTE and all? All of there's new paradigms constantly coming in, one of them may take over, I guess.
Well, what's interesting is VoLTE essentially is IMS, which has very, very, very strong SIP components. So that's only kind of for sort of pushing more and more SIP actually. So it's
Good
kind
point.
of interesting. Yeah, but largely I'd agree with these guys in that depending on the application and the status of the network and what have you, we still have faxing, we still have H.323, and we're seeing more and more SIP really still. I think it's going to be a long time before there isn't SIP going over some old carrier network somewhere, or some exchange, or some peering point, or what have you. If it ever goes away completely.
Well, what about some of the older? I mean, what about SS7? I mean, and landline technologies in general. That's kind of getting disintegrating, isn't it? Or is it?
I wouldn't say SS7.
Still have monkeys and apes, even though we've all evolved into humans.
Good point, Carl.
I think it's hard to know how fast the change will happen. I mean, some industries, some technologies just pretty much vanish overnight, and some hang around. And I think it's really difficult to predict which of those two, SIP is. I mean, we can all think of things that we used to do 5 years ago. Technologies like the VCR or whatever. That just don't exist anymore. But on the other hand, there are things like, I have a stack of CDs here. I haven't bought a CD for I can't think how long, but I have a stack that I still play, and occasionally I burn one for the old car and that kind of stuff. But so there are technologies that hang around, but that doesn't mean that they've kind of captured the mindset or that they're growing, well.
That's an excellent point about Tim, about VCRs, because really, other than if you have tapes, that's fine. But if you don't have any tapes, I do have tapes, so we have a VCR. But if you don't have tapes, now you're consuming MP4 files and so on. So, or you're using set-top box or whatever to record. So now we've got digital files.
I should like to point out that there was a CBS this morning ran a story that said that vinyl LPs sales have quadrupled in the last 2 years. So old technologies sometimes come back, but they're oftentimes driven by some counter-revolutionary thing.
Yeah,
SIP's not going away anytime soon. The interesting part about stereo, guys, though, is not having stereo, it's what you do with it. So the spatial transformations and the use of placement stuff, and just stereo alone is kind of, 1950s. But
let's face it, there's only one thing you can do with any great technologies, and that's porn. So if stereo helps porn, it'll grow.
We actually did have a good use case for stereo in conferences, and it was you made the enter and leave noises arrive and leave from the same position that you put the users, so you instantly knew who'd left. So none of this, who's just left? Because you knew that it was Fred, because Fred had been speaking from over there, and then you got the leave noise from over there, and that worked really well, actually, surprisingly so.
There was a great comment in IRC that said that we should have a I'm condensing it into the result, which is we really need a Hangout app. We're talking in Google Hangouts. ZipDX doesn't know who's speaking right now. The only thing who knows who's speaking is the Google Hangout plugin. So we need an app that tells IRC who's speaking, and that's actually true. That would be very interesting.
If you had an app that could determine who was speaking, that could actually be interfaced to ZipDX, and ZipDX would know that.
Well, I think it's I think that I haven't really looked at the Hangouts interface, but I'm pretty sure the API. But I'm pretty sure that you can get the name of who's speaking, and then you would just spit it out to whatever you want. So, if we have any volunteers here, I don't even know what these apps are written. I guess Python. Nor are we necessarily going to be using Hangouts forever on VUC. which poses an interesting problem for Jitsi. We'll have to talk to Emil and see if we can do something about that. But it's true that it would be nice if we would. I used to type in, for example, when Tony was speaking, I used to type in the full name of the person, and I have those all ready to go. But it's actually a little bit laborious to do it. So when Chris was talking a few minutes ago, and then say Tim came in, and Tim isn't in the Hangout, we have a problem with that because the Hangout doesn't know that it was Tim. I only knew because of the voice. So James is saying aluminium. I don't know what he's talking about, but anyway, that thing about knowing who's talking is for somebody who's listening. That's good. We need to look into that.
So anyway, as far as the whole SIP thing, just to make sure it's clear, we're not trying to declare war on SIP. FreeSWITCH is intended to bring lots of things together, and the reason we did this is we just feel that we can get more out of having our web application talking to the browser side of it, because there's no real need to implement SIP if you don't have to. Some people are going to anyway, and I hope that it's successful, and I'm not saying to pick what we're doing over what someone else is doing. We've chosen to do this because we anticipate that you would, go from your browser to FreeSWITCH with this protocol, and then probably end up calling somewhere else over SIP. We still support SIP also, obviously, and we don't expect it to go anywhere. And it's pretty much instrumental in most setups that have voice stuff. So, clearly we're not planning on getting rid of it. The main point was to be able to give web developers who want to make voice apps an ability to not only create calls and stuff on demand, but add even other elements to their system, or to be able to distribute the data going on in the call to an infrastructure before it gets to SIP. And so, yeah, and then the stereo thing is pretty much the first stepping stone was to get stereo functionality, which is just kind of, we still probably have to iron out a few kinks because we've only had the patch in there for like under a week. But yeah, once we have it working and stable, then clearly we will be trying to use it to do something besides just say we did it.
We should probably ask if there are any questions in IRC or on ZipDX. ZipDX, you hit *6 to unmute yourself, toggle the mute state. Type it in IRC.
I actually have a question. I'm not just going to lob incendiary SIP remarks all evening. So my question was about the new was it Verto?
Verto?
How do you do security, Verto? How do you do the security on that? How do you permission the stuff that comes down that WebSocket? What's it allowed to do and what isn't it allowed to do? That kind of stuff. I think let me preface that by saying I think it's a great idea. I think it's absolutely perfect. Brilliant, brilliant thing to do. I'm just kind of curious to know how you do how you wrap the security around it and things like cores and all the kind of nitty gritty stuff.
So we have a central directory system in FreeSWITCH that we use now for SIP credentials and stuff like that, and for personal settings for users. So we base it off of that. Each user or group of users can have a set of permissions. In fact, you have to add a permission to be allowed to even use the Verto endpoint, so it's not just a given. Basically, it's the Verto is a subset of a remote JSON RPC connection. So besides just being able to use the Verto functions, you can allow the different verbs, so to speak, of this protocol. And some of them, they have a subset, they're separated by a dot. So it's kind of like Verto dot and then a bunch of different methods. So if you just allow Verto by itself, you'll allow the entire protocol. And then within that, if you want to do the things like to get at the FreeSWITCH internals, you can allow those also on like a per command basis per user. And I anticipate we'll probably develop further easier ways to control those permissions. But basically everything you try and send is passed through a security check that has to be to make sure that the user is allowed to get it. And when we have the event channels to spit out the data, it's got a similar model. For instance, if you call, there's event channels, they're called. It's a new invention in FreeSWITCH. We've had events before, but event channels are more like the JSON broadcasting the data. It's kind of just a slightly different paradigm because it can bounce around through more than one server theoretically, and it can also it can transcend from the FreeSWITCH server into multicast over to another application. So you can write other applications that are on the server that are talking over multicast that can send and receive events into the system with the event channels. And if your user is allowed to get it, then you will. So like if you call a conference, you automatically get permission to see the events on that conference, so you can tell who's in it and everything. Like there's an event channel that'll show all the participants and like if they're talking or not and stuff like that. And if you're not in the call, there's actually events. If you had the permission given to you in the configuration, then you could see all the conferences at once. If you wanted, you could write an app that was showing them all. But like also at the same time, while you're a caller in the conference, you automatically get permission to it because you called the conference. And so there's ideas like that, and probably over the next many months as we start to develop stuff with it, we'll be pushed in the direction to add things and make it work in ways that go along with what people want to use it for, which is pretty much how we've grown FreeSWITCH in all the other areas that we use it.
Cool. So the model is really that you have, it's off the user base, it's off the authentication that you've already done, or that you would have done if you'd come in over SIP.
Yeah, the central directory featuring, it's like an XML directory that we have, which is also extendable to being dynamic because we have XML remote. Our XML directory can be done dynamically, so you can route the XML lookups to an external program that can go and go into your business logic or whatever and find it out of a database and allow things on the fly and whatever. So it's just all tied into that. So we just leveraged our existing user directory features.
So one of the things we had in Phone From Here all the time back when I was doing the Java applet thing, but also in Phono was how do you match up a user who's already logged into your portal site? So they've logged in on the web as, typed in their credentials and whatever, and then you want to leverage those in the telephony system. How do you marry up the fact that they've gone through OAuth or whatever with, how do you automatically match them up with something in the user database? That was always like a running kind of pain point for pretty much all of these things that I've tried to do, like in this line of joining the web with telephony.
I don't think I've tackled that problem yet. So you mean like you're using an OAuth application to get into the actual website of it, and then how to know that from the other side?
Yeah, so maybe you've logged into the company portal or something, and that's given you your TIM credential, and which lets you look at the HR list and all that stuff. And then one of the things in there is that you want to be able to make a phone call. But that phone call needs to be permissioned as if it was me, right? So the in-browser WebRTC needs to know that I've logged into the company portal as employee number 736, and then transfer that, associated permissions with that to the telephony endpoint. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. So
I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to do something like grab a cookie and in the JS actually allow you, when you create the Verto connection, to add some additional metadata to get it onto the voice side too.
Right.
Yeah, that's one thing
that's the kind of thing you end up doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think adding just another field that makes its way onto the session that would let you tie it in on the other side would be trivial.
So that's one of the things that I was touching on before. So as well as authenticating to FreeSWITCH, you can basically invent any call you want, essentially. you can go in and let's say you want to develop something, and you can either do it in C or you can do it as a scripting module, or you probably have a list of different ways to do it, but you can implement a command or interface in the JavaScript and in the C without touching really anything else, and make yourself, any of that kind of stuff if you want to be able to do it, like where you could send a command and then you implement that command on the other side and have it do stuff, such as like synchronize it with that data. Because say if the OAuth stuff is somehow tied to a database somewhere and it knows who you are, and you could probably develop a way to synchronize them by doing a request for it and having it pull back and tell you. I mean, you could probably even preempt the regular authentication.
Using the XML curl for the user directory, you can pass.
That's kind of the fun
want
part.
well.
It's like, now that we have this, we can actually take those kind of problems, and that's the fun part, is to try and implement stuff like that. And then if there's anything missing, that's how we find out, and then we add to it. But so far, this is a brand new thing. So what we have so far is a call setup and eventing, and we have messaging and presence. So we have kind of a new paradigm in presence too that uses a little less weight than some of the other existing presence stuff. And so I still have some work to do to actually expose that on the outside, because right now it's just like raw events, and JavaScript is my 10th language, so I made the demo thing on there, and it's like not the best thing. My C code is much better than my JavaScript, but what we're hoping to do is to build a client-side library and get people to work on it with us, and we'll have it in a checkout somewhere, and it'll grow, and people will be able to use it, and we'll make it simple to use on the outside, and add functionality based on people trying to implement stuff with it.
Okay, anybody have any questions in IRC? Again, oops, it's not Tim anymore, it's me. Hello. I had a picture of you, Tim, just to clear things up and make sure that nobody confused you with our stills. Any questions on IRC or James? James, do you have a question? No, JavaScript is my 10th language. That's a good comment right there. Or on ZipDX. If you're on ZipDX, I remind you that *6 will toggle your audio so that you can speak and you can ask your question. This is one of these opportunities where you've got a large proportion of the FreeSWITCH team here. So if you've maybe just reinstalled the newest version that just came out or whatever, any questions or comments that you may have for these guys, this is a perfect opportunity to do it. Otherwise,
you can call here from our demo, by the way. If you go to webrtc.freeswitch.org, you can enter VUC as the extension, and you'll call here.
There you go. So you go to
webrtc.freeswitch.org.
webrtc.freeswitch.org, which we've tested and it works great. And then you call VUC, you're saying?
Yep.
That's wonderful. So you can try that. Jay Carpenter asks, where can we get more information about Verto? I Googled it with few results. That's an interesting point, by the way, that you might take into...
go
ahead.
If you Google it tomorrow, you'll get this video, which will be the only existing evidence that it even exists, because we just announced it yesterday. So
right.
There really isn't any other information other than talking to us. So you can join our community, or you can go on our mailing list, or you can hang out in our IRC channel, where I'm sure now that it's in the public, we will have people playing with it and generating. It'll be a great exercise for our documentation team to see how they tackle a brand new invention. Because so far they're just doing legacy stuff, trying to port over our existing things, and they've got a fresh new thing that they can practice their documentation effort on.
Right.
So far, the only information is to ask me about it or any of the other guys around here.
It's a good point about the IRC channel. Is it very active? Because a lot of projects.
Our IRC channel is pretty active. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of projects that I've been involved with or even just looked at briefly, yeah, there's an IRC channel, but there's like one person. There may be 12 people on there and so on. You guys are there's actually somebody there a lot of the time, right?
There's about 250 people there right now.
Well, there you go. So that channel is called, I'm going to guess, FreeSWITCH. Right? Okay, so that's easy enough. IRC, everybody disses IRC, but it's actually a great technology. It's a horrible technology, but it works. Let's put it that way. And it's a single channel that you can reach people live all over the planet whenever they're awake. On
Yes,
Freenode.
and the
Yeah,
fact that it's a little bit hard to get configured, that it keeps some of the, it keeps kind of the riffraff out, if you know what I mean.
In a sense, it does. Although, if I recall, the asterisk channel didn't really keep the riffraff out. Brian kept him out. Brian kept him out with his next thing, but
I thought you meant Brian was in there.
he was in there. He was always in there, but he kept the riffraff out. The other riffraff. Set riffraff filter equals on. Yeah. So, Jay Carpenter again. So, Verto is a construct of FreeSWITCH exclusively. Did you folks at FreeSWITCH come up with the name? It's true that the name. What does the name mean even? Where does that come from? It must be something. Or did you say already?
Where the name came from, actually, as usual, you know, looking at a million different Latin words and trying to find one that was cool. Verto is means communication. It's kind of, it's like the word, it's the word in like advertisement, the vert, or in inadvertently. The vert part is it's a Latin root for communication or spreading information.
Interesting. In French, it means green.
In Latin, it's probably actually Verto, not Verto, but
yeah. So, Jay says, sounds cool and exciting. It's true. That's an interesting. I mean, it doesn't look like something else, which is already a very good point for it. That's great. Well, I'll have to Google it in like 3 days.
But other than that, yeah, Google it in 3 days and see if the docs guys have managed to make it exist.
Yeah. I mean, again, the call setup stuff is all interesting, and it's a simpler way to set up calls. I think the real advantage here is it exposes this web API for additional data to the users that's attached to the call. That's something that really hasn't been out there before in a coherent way. So I think that's the interesting thing. The best thing on the demo that you can see is how the conference list just shows up automatically when you join the conference. But just imagine how much more the same infrastructure could be used to expand into visual voicemail or something like that we could add to the technology.
You know, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
So you know, what's interesting about that is that you know, FreeSWITCH with its kind of well-known and fairly well understood eventing system ESL has had that data available for some time. But you know, and there are various you know, Uber conference type apps and what have you that allow for, you know, significant you know, conference management or channel management. But you know, all of those are implemented using a completely separate implementation over a completely separate socket with some completely separate out-of-band management with all sorts of you know, to James's earlier question about security, all sorts of, you know, particular specific security issues associated, and, you know, and what have you. It's, you know, made it significantly more difficult to develop, you know, those kinds of applications. And so now with WebRTC, you've got not only a, you know, kind of a built-in media engine in the browser and WebSockets, the ability to just kind of do your own sort of transport from the browser. You know, you can now do things like this where you have call setup and control, which is, you know, pretty much all SIP at least kind of in practice really offers, combined with that you know, that eventing and you know, command structure available through ESL. Only now it's you know, like I've said, available in one client library with one, you know, easy to use, easy to understand API, and kind of the, you know, the WebRTC promise of, oh, here, you know, include this, call this, and, you know, Pure Connection API does its thing and whatever, and, you know, you can have one of these, you know, these demo apps up and running in 10 minutes. Now you can do that and also be able to, you know, in a similar amount of time, but also be able to leverage the you know, the power and the additional functionality and options that are available to you with a FreeSWITCH server on the other side.
Yeah, that's kind of what we feel. At least I do. I don't know if everyone else joins me in this, but I really strongly feel that our mission for WebRTC is to preserve the telephony aspect of it. Everyone else can have fun like trying to make games with it and stuff, and like, you know, you can quickly throw together something in 2 seconds just with a bunch of JavaScript and say, look, it's a WebRTC app, and those are fun. But for us, it's like WebRTC is just another way to enhance what we already have, not replace it. And I think some people are like, why don't we just replace it? This is the way of the future and stuff. But really, I just think of it more as a augmentation to what we have. So I don't want to get rid of the telephony stuff because it's fun, and everybody in our community thinks it's fun. And people actually get obsessed with doing some of this stuff just because, not like because they're being forced to. Like some of it's boring, and working with SIP and getting in WebRTC to work from scratch is really hard, and I wish I didn't have to do it. But you know, I'm jealous of those guys that just make the one-line JavaScript and have a guy talking to each other in video and stuff, because it's like trying to implement the actual engine was monstrous, and it was still happening. Like right now, every day there's like a new, like Chrome gives me a surprise when it updates, and then I have to play around with the guts of it. But it's more about taking telephony and futurizing it, not getting rid of it, because we don't want to get rid of telephony because we like it. So it's we have like our mission is like the Lorax, you know, like we preserve the telephony, and we just want to take it and bring it to the web also, because why not? Because now we have a really cool client and all this different stuff we can do, and your imagination is there. Because really, FreeSWITCH is designed with that kind of web developer mentality all along. Like I was a web developer back when you had to write CGIs in C and stream like each frame of an animation, and like so now. Finally, after all these years, we have all this really cool stuff we can do, and along the way, I can help being inspired by that all along. You know, I started by making CGIs and the HTML and all those different things, and it was never like the only thing I was interested in, but I have a huge background in it. So all that time using Apache and using web apps and everything, like FreeSWITCH is heavily influenced by those things that came before it that have that.
Oops.
Did we lose Anthony?
We may have brought the... I just was trying to call in. I think I brought your server down. No. Probably a coincidence, right? Is there... So we've been going about an hour, which is... I mean, we can go 20 hours if you guys want to, but I was going to say, first of all, is there some kind of demo? And if not, do we want to get people who are listening maybe to move over to one of your servers, either including video or whatever? Is there something we would like to do now to... change the vibe and the paradigm a little bit, or?
So the tricky part is it turns out it's really hard to demonstrate stereo when a bunch of people are calling in with mono lines.
No question.
So if people want to grab some headsets and go over to WebRTC.freeswitch.org/Verto, Tony says you don't need to do that.
You don't need to. You just need to go to WebRTC.freeswitch.org. We made it the default.
Is it? It's not doing that for me still. I must have browser cache.
I'm over there right now. I see 3500 as the default call.
Okay, you're seeing the right one then. I'm still on. Okay,
and
so
check the use stereo audio if you want video.
So
check that as well.
Do I need to call? I'm on a laptop here. It says use video, use stereo audio. Okay, I click on there. Right. Call 3500. This isn't actually going to do anything. I'm just doing it so that people will know what to do. I click call on the 3500, and it's going to give me the demo, right? Talking to outgoing call.
So now you see live that, you know, the different members that have called in, the real-time talk detection on that table.
This is actually a different computer, so I can't do a screen share, but here you've got, if this ever focuses there. Almost.
And for extra fun, particularly on Chrome, you can turn on the JavaScript console and see various logging and debug event stuff show up, which is cool.
Yeah, that would be.
I'm going to leave to reduce the amount of echo coming from Bridget.
Yeah, well, that's probably me, actually. Let me get rid of that.
I'm going to hint on something that Anthony didn't really discuss. Is you can actually close your web browser and then resume the call when you open it back up. So, which is something when we were originally doing WebRTC, Anthony and myself would always inadvertently close out the tab. So, you know, that functionality is there.
It kind of rehydrates it and reconnects it to the right media stream.
Yes.
Cool.
In addition,
are any of you guys going to be at the WebRTC conference next week?
I don't know. I may see if I can make it there.
Is that the one in Atlanta or something?
Atlanta.
Tony just sent me a text message. His internet just went completely dead, so I think we've lost him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right then. So we probably close this call out. I was just asking if you guys wanted to give everybody a rendezvous over on the other channel or whatever. But certainly go over to conference.freeswitch.org or just go to freeswitch.org and look at what's on display there. I'm sorry, WebRTC, obviously. I mean, all of these work, by the way, but they go to different places.
Yeah, and Randy, if I can get one more thing about ClueCon before we sign off here. Monday before, if you're coming to ClueCon, Monday before ClueCon is the OpenSIP Summit. We'll be running there on Monday at the hotel, so you can go to OpenSIP Summit and then straight into ClueCon. And for you guys that are new to FreeSWITch or newer to FreeSWITch, and if you want to get training on Friday this year, we'll be doing, following ClueCon, a one-day boot camp style training. It's all day long, and it's very reasonable price. Go to ClueCon.com to get more information there, or feel free to contact me or Brian, and we'll get you all the information out on that. And it's very reasonable price, and it covers from noob all the way up through mid-level stuff. So it's very good for you guys trying to get familiar with FreeSWITch.
Excellent. And that's once again, thanks everybody for your time. You guys come, the entire team just about comes by, and we appreciate it. And you know you're welcome anytime. We're always happy to see and hear from you. The rendezvous is ClueCon. You go to ClueCon.com. Tell them Randy sent you. That'll I get a 1 penny commission on each link, each click. And we will talk to you again soon. And for those of you who are going to ClueCon, you'll meet a bunch of very awesome people, including Mr. Bodie. Andy's going, I think, as well. I know Brian and probably everybody here from FreeSWITch is going, I guess. So you got a chance to meet everybody. Do it.
Yeah.
And do it now. Go register now. I'm going to say goodbye. We're going to kill the Hangout here, and then we're going to go to the mature audiences version, okay? So here we are.